The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Columbia Sportswear. It's snowing again, and that wind chill is killer. But you're not worried about that because you shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection. It's warmth perfected with tiny gold dots that reflect your body heat inside and protect you from the cold outside. No snow or chilly temps can stop you now. Go out anyway. Shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection now at Columbia.com/infinity.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Have you ever wanted to try a TTRPG, but haven't been able to make it happen? Are you looking for a top-tier D&D and D&D adjacent experience with a game runner that knows what they're doing? Would you like to try a new system outside of D&D, but don't know how to get started? Then come by the Orsak Narrative Universe Discord and try D&D 5e or 3.5, Pathfinder, Monster of the Week, Percent Chance of Failure, or their own ONU system. Just tell them Roll Britannia sent you to get 2 weeks absolutely free. So head over to their website at www.orsaknarrativeuniverse.com to learn more.
So hello and welcome to Roll Britannia Parley. I'm Tom and I play a character called Keth Frostein in Roll Britannia. So in this series, I'm going to be talking to other podcasters, celebrities and members of the TTRPG community with help along the way from my crewmates from Roll Britannia. So each episode I'll have a special guest who plays the game, talks about the game, or even sometimes make Hollywood blockbusters about Dungeons & Dragons. Speaking of which, for my first show, I thought that I may as well go big or go home, which is why I found myself sitting down with the directors and producer of the upcoming movie Dungeons & Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves after getting an exclusive preview of the film. If you haven't seen the film, here's a trailer.
On your knees.
Okay, chop it off.
Chop it off. Let's do it. Oh, we got him now. You know what? I'm thinking there are probably sharper stairs somewhere else.
We're thieves, but we help the wrong person steal the wrong thing and unleash the greatest evil the world has ever known.
The Red Wizards created an army of the undead.
Sounds lovely.
Quite the opposite.
I know, I was being ironic.
I find irony is a blade that cuts he who wields it most especially.
You're not a lot of fun, are you? How are we gonna pull this off?
We're gonna need a team.
You need cool air.
Follow me to the orifice.
Back to school air.
The orifice?
I'll go last.
Let's go. I don't mind that. He missed.
No, that's not good. Aren't you sick of failing? We could die.
There's worse things than dying. I lost everything that ever mattered to me. And if we quit now, that's for nothing.
I don't want to see you die, which is why I'm going to leave the room.
This ends now.
The bridge is protected by an ancient trap. We must not trigger the mechanism.
I may have triggered the mechanism. So, sorry.
So, joining me now from Roll Britannia is James, the Dungeon Master.
Hello.
Alex, who plays Derek Normalbeard the Dwarf.
Hello there.
Also hello.
Chip, who plays Jeff Silverbow the Human. And Paul, who plays Maurus the Halfling. We were lucky enough to get to go to London's Leicester Square to watch the movie before...
I haven't.
before pretty much everybody else, even before the premiere. Now, don't worry, if you haven't seen the film yet and you don't want any spoilers, don't switch off, as we won't be giving anything away. I mean, I can't believe that it was all about aliens in the end anyway.
Yeah, Tom! Yeah, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was a weird route to go down.
I was good to see that Jeremy Irons was back.
Oh.
I did enjoy that.
Yeah, but to play an owl.
So what did you all think of the film?
I mean, I loved it. It was an absolute riot for me. Like, sorry, Paul.
It's about Dungeons and Dragons.
We sat next to Rufus Hound.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Yeah.
Very nice, man.
Very charming he was too.
Gave us a little
good knowledge of cinema etiquette as well.
Yeah.
Not wanting to leave an empty seat between us and him.
Yeah. Gave us.
Just glad I showered.
Showered especially for Rufus.
In fairness, Paul, the film itself I thought it was really nice representation. Obviously, you go into it as a film enthusiast and D&D player to some degree with a little bit of an expectation and sort of some sort of bar set. But I think that from when not knowing much about D&D, as we all know, I found the little hat tips that were thrown in were quite nice. As a mild player of D&D, as we all are now, I could appreciate them, which was cool. But equally, it's a cool storyline. It's a good storyline throughout. If you didn't have a D&D background knowledge, you could still just enjoy it as an action film, really, with a comedy overlay.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good fantasy adventure. Very similar in spirit to Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's sort of no wonder why. The found family ensemble. I think there's a lot to love in there if you are a D&D fan. There's loads of different times where we're all sort of nudging each other and being like, that's your character, that's my character. One of the characters fails a quick TC in the film, and I was like, oh, that's me. They've got me here. There's some really cool, really cool sequences in there. Specifically to do with like the druid and the way that all works. I heard, or I read at least in one of the reviews, or maybe it was in the press pack that they gave us, that they actually filmed that the beast shape sequence with a parkour expert, so they could get the movement right, which I thought was really interesting. It flows really well, and I think, like I say, I think there's a lot to enjoy just as sort of a fun ride for the film, and it's funny. It's really funny.
Yeah,
really funny. It's got a very British sense of humour, which is really nice.
Yes.
For me, it's kind of what's nice about it is that although we're D&D fans and know nothing about D&D somehow, we keep doing this podcast and we keep still not learning how to actually play, which is quite an achievement, I think. But even if you didn't have that background, I think this film is one of those things that actually is really enjoyable as a product all by itself. Even if you stripped D&D out of it as a concept and it was just some other film, a fantasy setting, action adventure.
Yeah, I think
it would still stand.
I do think so. I think it has a very Marvel-ish sensibility to it, where it doesn't take itself seriously or that seriously. And I also really liked, and this isn't a spoiler by any means because they've said it. The directors have said it themselves in a couple of interviews. But I also really liked the fact that they didn't do this kind of fourth wall where players playing D&D. It was just an adventure set in that kind of Faerun universe.
You got to sort of live in the world with them, just sort of like how we all want to do when we're playing.
Yeah.
You just sort of forget you are people sat around a table and just get immersed in the action. And I'm glad that, the fights didn't take 2 hours.
Yeah.
See, I told you it can be done.
Much more slick at rolling, James, clearly.
We just need to get ourselves
And
a
look,
big movie
when they
crew.
sat down at a table, they just sat down.
Yeah, I don't think that was well played. I think that was the one bit of the whole film that I think didn't feel real to me.
Oh, it should take an hour to sit at a table.
Easily. They didn't have any deliberations.
Yeah, okay.
They didn't even think if there was two sides to the table. They just knew there were two sides to the table. Like, nutters.
However, what I do like is the kind of, it does capture, there's a lot of like plan A, plan B stuff, go back to plan A kind of thing. And they do manage to capture the kind of fools rush in element of D&D. Especially to do with some of the backstory and the way that the plot itself is set up in kind of, and then there's a couple of flashback sequences that did feel like it captured it really well. There's a really great joke with intellect devourers as well that I won't spoil, but I really like that. Pretty funny.
If there was one complaint, probably I'd have. If there was one complaint I'd have for it, it would be that there was probably so much yada-yadaing at the start of the movie. You could have fitted a whole nother movie in that yada-yada.
Yeah, I feel like the
which again is very D&D.
And this, just it. It felt very real because you do have to have that sort of go through the characters, learn all the backstories, a little bit enough about them to give to care. And then you can get into the action where they might be put in peril. You might go, "Oh no, don't get him because he's really nice," or "I really like them. Don't get rid of them."
But they did have treat it in a very nice way, though, in my opinion. The fact that the exposition was kind of in character exposition, not kind of forceful.
Absolutely.
And here's the world with this and that. It was
within,
I quite, again, it was a nice thing. But
would you guys go and watch it again?
I'd go watch it for the first time.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Paul.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Paul.
Definitely.
We might get you a massage seat as well.
I would. I think it's an enjoyable adventure. I think, especially if you go and see it with D&D fans, if you go and see it with your family, they'll enjoy it. But I think that there is so much in it that if you have an evening where you have a D&D game and then you go and see the movie afterwards, I think you'll get a lot of fun out of being like, that's you on screen. But
there was a few moments like that, Alex.
There was a few, yeah.
A lot of nudging towards me. I would definitely go see it again. I think it's one of those films where you'll watch it the first time like we did, and you will have those little elbow nudges to your mates when you're watching it, because you will get there are some D&D references and things like that are very overt, and are very obviously like, oh my god, it's a D&D thing. That is a genuine D&D thing. I know about this. This is cool. But then I think the second and third time you'll watch it, I feel like with the Guardians of the Galaxy backgroundings, as well as the sort of depth that you can have with Dungeons and Dragons, I think that it's one of those ones where you watch it multiple times and you'll gain a new little Easter egg or cool little thing that you'll see every single time. No matter how many times you sort of watch it, there's always going to be a different perspective, because it has that feel of a living, breathing story. So you almost feel like it could change the next time you watch it, even though it's not going to.
Yeah.
What did you think to some of the locations in the film?
Beautiful.
Really stunning.
There were some really fantastic.
Stunning.
Yeah,
They
really
shot,
beautiful.
In Iceland, Ireland, and I think maybe somewhere in Czechoslovakia, in Czechia. Similar kind of environments to things like they used for Game of Thrones and stuff. The way that they do a certain area of the world, a certain realm that they have to travel to get this staff of magic, is modelled off things like the Giant's Causeway, which is really, really nice touch. The actual towns themselves have really clear influence from a lot of the world, which kind of gives you a lot of colour. It gives you a lot of architectural scope where all of the environments look different to each other. The location that the movie opens in is modelled off a bunch of different castles and stuff like that. So that was really cool. And it gives you the variety that you get in D&D, rather than just like, I don't know, a brown town that you would see in another fantasy thing. You know, it's not like by any means a dark or murky kind of colour palette film. It's quite bright. It's very fun.
Yeah.
And the arena stuff looked really cool. I really, really like that.
The sort of time I felt they did it very well. From my experience of D&D, having a fantastic dungeon master that paints a very vivid picture, I feel like it was quite a nice representation of how, like Alex is saying, is that you can almost, when someone's telling you a description of something, you can almost sometimes have that, it seems very grey, very monotoned image in your head. But actually, with the level of descriptions that we're quite used to, you do get a much better picture. And I mean, the sets and the places that they used were absolutely stunning. Not quite as stunning as that one place that Paul also didn't see, unfortunately. But they were equally as stunning.
That was beautiful.
It was
really
beautiful, truly beautiful.
Probably the most beautiful place you've ever seen.
And ever likely to again, I imagine.
Yeah. They won't be anywhere as good as that.
I'm going back.
They're not going to release it now.
They've torn it down. They've put a car park there.
It's been pushed back.
But yeah, I think the film is really playful. It's like I say, it's very light, which makes it a lot more accessible for audiences of across the spectrum, really, of all ages. And you feel like you're in this kind of playful imagination realm, which is really nice.
So you mentioned earlier, Alex, that there was a Guardians of the Galaxy feel. So, funnily enough, the producer of the film was Jeremy Latcham, who was the producer on, if you didn't know, Guardians of the Galaxy, Iron Man, Spider-Man Homecoming. And we were lucky enough to be able to sit down and have a really good chat with him about the upcoming Dungeons & Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves movie. And here's what he had to say.
So, Jeremy, hi. We're from Roll Britannia podcast, and we were lucky enough to be able to see your movie last week.
Yes, it was, yes.
And absolutely loved
good.
it.
Oh, good. All right, that's a relief. All right,
Yeah.
So we're coming in
It's a
from a
great
good spot.
start.
All right,
Yes.
so we're starting off in an okay spot. All right, you like the movie. Okay, good.
Really enjoyed it. It was,
I can't wait to see it again.
Yeah?
Honestly, I cannot wait to go and see it again.
Good.
Really enjoyed it.
Well, we enjoyed making it, so it works out because it was a lot of fun to make, and it's a lot of fun to watch people watch it, which is kind of my favorite part of making a movie.
So I guess, let's start off with a really easy question for you. What was your favourite part about being involved in the D&D movie?
Oh, man. I mean, my favorite part about being involved in the D&D movie, I like the whole process of making a film. I've been doing it for a minute. I started back at Marvel in 2004, and so I've been making movies for a long time, and I've come to find love for every part of the process. I love developing movies. I love starting in the early stages and working on a script. It's kind of fun at the beginning because anything's possible, you can go to the moon and you can go underwater, you can go to outer space, you can go here, you can do anything. It's all possible at the beginning. And then slowly some realities start to settle in and you can't do everything. And there's a budget and there's realities of shooting and the realities of how you get it done. And so constraint starts to be fun to play with and to figure out all right, well, now what do we do? How do we make this fit? And how do we make it all come together? And what do we really need? What can we throw away? And what do we have to really carve out? So that part's fun. And then making a movie is really fun. Shooting a movie's exhausting and long, and people like to complain about the food and the hours and all that, but it's come on, it's a lot of fun. And editing a movie is really fun. Releasing a movie is difficult because you don't know what's going to happen, and you're done, and you can't change it. And sometimes you'll read a comment someone makes, and you're like, "Crap, they're right." Oh boy, is anyone else going to notice that? Oh man, and, so it's like that part's scary and fun, but then you get to watch with an audience, and that's kind of the whole point of making a movie in the first place. Is I love sitting in a room with a lot of people and watching people laugh and watching people cry and watching people clap and watch people have fun. And that's kind of why I think we're all in this business is we like going to the cinema and having the lights come down and being like, let's go on a ride. So I don't know. I like the whole process, which is a really lame answer for you, but I do like the whole process. I mean, it's a fun journey. It's 3 years. And so if you gotta learn to like all of it because all the parts take a long time. And so if you hate part of it, you're 6 months of your life or a year of your life, you're going to hate. That's not worth it. So you learn to love the whole thing. It's just got different parts.
So did you play Dungeons & Dragons yourself before the film?
No, I did not. And it's weird, but I also didn't read Marvel comics before I started working at Marvel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm a weird guy in pop culture space. Because I was not really a Marvel fan before Marvel, and I was not really a D&D fan before this movie. And so I kind of like to think of myself like strangely as like a cultural anthropologist. Like I like to figure out what people love, and I like to figure out how to take that thing they love and give them more of it, and like figure out what makes it tick, what makes the fandom tick, what makes it fun, but also try to make it so that like for someone who doesn't love it, that they can end up having something they love. And so in a weird way, like, and this is like kind of sacrilege, and you get a lot of comments, I'm sorry. Like I didn't grow up loving Star Wars. Like I just didn't grow up loving Star Wars. I know it's controversial. And so when the idea of making Guardians of the Galaxy came around, I was like, I'm going to make a space movie that I like. Like, how can I make a space movie that like is something I really can dig, right? And my wife is a huge Star Wars fan and like the biggest nerd in the world, and is like, what the hell's wrong with you? What do you mean you like Star Wars? Like, I just never grew up with it. Like, I didn't love it as a kid. Like, I didn't have this affinity for it. But I want to make the thing that this next generation can have an affinity for. Because I think a lot of what we're doing right now is, like, we're remaking so much stuff where it's like, this generation doesn't get a chance to have their own say and, like, what is their thing? And I was like, let's make the thing that, like, a generation of kids can grow up with. Let's make that Guardians. And so in a weird way, I didn't grow up loving fantasy. Like, I didn't grow up loving Lord of the Rings movies, you know? Like, I thought they were a little too dark for me personally as a person to enjoy. Like, I like things that are lighter and fun and a little more, you know, a little more buoyant. And so I was like, can I find a way to make a fantasy movie that I like? So basically, I'm going to take all the genres that I have issues with and, like, find a way to make a version of it that I think is really clever, or fun, or charming or whatever. And so it's kind of a weird point of view, but it's, I think it's a lot of fun. And so I feel like I've now, like, gotten to be involved in a fantasy movie that I love. And so now I'm like, oh, I'm a fantasy fan. You know, I like this movie. I think it's really fun. And it turns out along the way, I found a bunch of fantasy stuff that I really did love. It all just happened to be from the 80s, you know, like Princess Bride and Neverending Story. And like, it turned out there was a whole passel of stuff that all had kind of had this tone before, kind of shoulders that we were standing on top of. But it wasn't the stuff that I thought it was going to be. You know what I mean? It wasn't the traditional stuff where it's like Lord of the Rings and, you know, The Hobbit and all that. Like, turns out I like this, like, more different vibe fantasy, and I'm really digging it. Now I'm a big fantasy fan. So there you go.
So you're a big fantasy fan.
Yeah.
Are you going to give D&D a go?
Yeah, man. I mean, we started messing around, obviously, during the course of the movie, and the guys, John and Jonathan, are both players since they were kids. And so that's like kind of the balance, right? Is like you have to have both. And so I think I am often like the person that speaks for the uninitiated and says, like, I mean, the joke at Marvel, because I was there, 14 years, the joke at Marvel was like, well, my Mima and Peepaw like it. That was the big joke in the editing room. And so, like, we were always joking that we were making Iron Man or Avengers or Guardians for Jeremy's Mima and Peepaw. And it was like the thing, like, everyone would be like, Mima's not going to like that, and it was like a big joke in the editing room. But it really was like kind of in a weird way. And it's like, I think it's even in the Marvel history book, like the big 2-tome thing that we put out. There's like a whole section in there about like Jeremy's Mima and Peepaw, which made me laugh. That like got written about, like, is like part of like cinema history or something now. But it was a good like North Star for like, are we making this for everybody? And it's kind of crazy. When my grandfather passed away, he passed away while Guardians was like right in the release window. And he saw it the weekend it came out, and he fell in love with it. And it was like this really weird, like, full circle thing where, like, we've been joking for years, like, it's for Mima and Peepaw, and my grandfather, like, fell in love with Groot. And I remember calling Hasbro and being like, can I get the little action figure early? Because it was a second wave, or it wasn't out yet, or it was hard to find, or it sold out. I don't remember what it was, but I was like, I need one right away. And I sent it to my grandfather, like, on his deathbed. And like he like was like saying I am Groot all the time, and like it was just like in this like delusional stages of like passing away. Like he had this thing he loved, and I was like, in a weird way, like we were making it for my grandma and grandpa. It was like so weird, but it's like this beautiful thing when you're making movies because they really are for everybody. Like it's just like it's a beautiful thing. Like it's a great thing to do, is to make movies and like give people that experience.
So when you're on set.
Yeah.
And in between takes, was there a D&D cast game going? Did they all play amongst themselves?
No, we had a big game. Once we started shooting, there was just no time. I mean, like, no one's like, the image of everyone hanging out on set is so, like, not true, because, like, it's just work. I mean, you show up and you're working 13 hours a day, and people are coming and going, and everyone's got to get into their costumes, into their makeup, and it all takes time, and it changes, and, we got to... Anyway, so there's not much happening when you're playing, like playtime, when you're actually in the thick of it. But when everyone showed up in Belfast for rehearsal, we all started playing, and we had like one big game We had a DM from Seattle, from Wizards of the Coast, like beam in to our place. All the actors had gone on with her and had created their character before they showed up, and all their characters were kind of based on their characters in the film. And everyone showed up, and then we have a DM, and she took us on like a big one-shot adventure, and we had a blast, and like everybody had fun. And I think, in a weird way, it's like the best rehearsal time I've ever seen on a movie set. Because oftentimes you come into a movie and you just like, all right, we're gonna have rehearsal, and we've got like on Guardians, we have like the Milano like taped out on the floor, and like we know its dimensions, and it's like we start like immediately just blocking and getting technical, and we're not taking the time to like play. And something about like having them sit around a table and throw dice and laugh, and like they slowly became their characters, and they all slowly bonded together, and they started like becoming like friends in that day. And then we started the regular rehearsals like a day or two after that, and like started like rehearsing the actual scenes in the film. But I think that little 8-hour session where everyone just like graciously was still jet lagged, we just got out of quarantine, and we show up in Belfast, and we got all these sandwiches and cakes and a lot of beer, and we're all just sitting around, and then we have a DM on a TV from Seattle, and we just played, and it was wild, and it was really fun, and everyone came out of the other side of that like, oh man, I think we're all friends. And it was the best way to become friends and to find friendship. I mean, look, the reason I didn't play as a kid was I wasn't allowed to. Right? Oh, really? Yeah, it's 80s in Oklahoma, and like if you remember, there's a little bit of panic around the game at the time. Yeah. And I think that it was maybe the most misunderstood game in the world, because like really all that's happening is a bunch of like nerdy kids are sitting around becoming friends and like gaining confidence and interpersonal skills, learn to talk to one another, learn to solve problems, and like having a blast. And it was like fun getting to watch the cast do that, you know? Because like at the end of the day, no matter who you are, you just like come into something. You could be a famous movie star. You come into something, you're still nervous. So many new people. It's like you still got all those anxieties. Like just because you're really dashingly handsome and super famous doesn't mean that you're not a real person. I mean, you've been around long enough around celebrities. They're all real people. And I think it just like erased all the social barriers and just like let them become friends. It was like a really accelerated friendship builder. And I think that's what D&D kind of is.
That's a great tagline, actually. Accelerated friendship builder. There you go.
Put that on my CV, I think.
Yeah.
Now, you say that, obviously you worked on some amazing films. How much influence? Because me personally, I found that there's quite a lot of comparisons you can make between this D&D movie, Honor Among Thieves, and things like Guardians of the Galaxy. It feels like that kind of energy is kind of there. How much influence does that kind of have on your workflow? I
mean, to me, I'm always, and I think it's a bit of a cliche at times about like what movies are about from a theme level, but there's only one real theme that I'm always trying to get to as like a producer. Like I think the thing that drives us to cinema and drives us as humans is this notion of like togetherness and of like finding camaraderie and friendship and love and people, you know? And I think that's kind of what we're all doing in our own weird way. Like you two found each other and decided to make a podcast together, and that's like, I'm sure you guys are mates and like it's the podcast brings you together and you have this thing, you found your people, and like I think that's what we're all doing, you know, and like in a weird way that's what making a movie is. You like find all the people, you find all your people want to go on this adventure with you. But I think that's what the movies are ultimately about. I think the movies are ultimately, when you go to the movies, you want to see people finding connection and like learning about each other and like on this character journey. And that's like the thing that drives me as a storyteller is like it's about family. Like it's truly like in the most Vin Diesel way, like it's about family. It's all about family, but like it's all about family. That's what takes us to the theater. And I also, by the way, I think that's what takes us into the movie theater physically as people. Like I think we walk in there and the lights go down and we don't know all these people going in, and we come out the other side of it and we all have a shared experience of how that movie played in that 2 hours. And it's different than how it played the 2 hours in the cinema next door. Like in that cinema, there was like an angry guy and he caused everyone not to laugh at something because he had bad energy. And like in our cinema, we had a bunch of happy people and we all laughed and we came out the other side. We're friends. We had a good time. And I think like that thing is kind of what is like why cinema exists. Like it's why it's a communal art form. I think it's like I'm super like, no offense to all the people that make the streaming movies. I'm super not into the streaming movies. Like I haven't actually ever, maybe two in all the streaming era that I've actually watched top to bottom in one sitting of a streaming movie. It's not the same. No, it's like, not. I go to the cinema and I have fun with friends. Like it turns out like I like, And even I think some of these like recliner seats that we're making them too wide and we're all too far apart, we're losing some of the energy. Like I love like being like we were in Paris the other night at the Rex, and it's the biggest cinema in Europe, and it's 2,700 seats.
Wow!
And they're these tiny little seats from like the 1950s or something. And that room, man, like it's electric because people are all like bouncing off each other, and you hear they're breathing at the same rate because things are all happening, and it's like that's movies, man. Like it's like the communal experience.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's that theme in all the stuff I've worked on, kind of. I think it all comes down to heart, and I think it all comes down to like connection and like finding your way, and like I think that's what we're after.
And the question that we all wanted answering is, would there be a sequel? And this is what Jeremy had to say.
One final question for you is there going to be a sequel, and can we be in it?
We're very cheap. Very cheap. Okay, well, that's good to know. Well, here's what I'll say about the sequel. I have gone out of my way to make sure that we're not talking about a sequel.
Sure.
And I think it's because I think Hollywood's gotten really cynical the last few years, and I think there's been a lot of things that have had like a cliffhanger ending and a tag at the end.
Yeah.
And then you come back and you're like, that's never going to get resolved. Like, we're never going to find out who the man in the hat is, let's be honest. It's just not going to happen. Like, no one cares who the man in the hat is. Or whatever it is that happens at the end of a movie that, like, promises you more. And what I said from the outset on this one, I was like, guys, like, let's not fall into the trap. Let's just make a good movie. Because without one good thing, there's nothing else. Like, if we can't make one good thing, then no one's going to care how many clever tag scenes we had at the end that promised you more mediocre things. And so we really went out of our way to say, let's not like plan a sequel. Let's not set up a bunch of things. Let's not put a bunch of Easter eggs that are about setting up things. Like, there's lots of Easter eggs, but they're about the world, and they're about like the world you're living in, and they're about the movie that you're in. There's not like, oh, look, I just saw a beholder's shadow go by. Like, no, like if we get a chance to do that, it'll be awesome. And it'll mean that we got there on our own merit because people responded to the film and went to that dark room and all laughed and cried together and had a good time and came out feeling different. And that means they want more. And that'd be great. And I nothing would make me happier. But I really felt it was important not to plan on it.
Yeah.
Because it's cynical. And I think people could smell it now. And I think people are a little tired of it. And so, I mean, hopefully you guys were relieved when you got to the end and it wasn't like, here comes a beholder's shadow. Like, it's like, all right, well, if we're lucky enough, we get there. So I would love to continue expanding the universe. I think it's endless, but it certainly was not our plan. Our plan is, as Kevin Feige once told me, if you have a good idea, put it in the first movie, because there's no promise of a second film. And it's Kevin Feige for a reason. So, you listen.
Brilliant.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Was that fun?
Really enjoyed it. Good. Love the movie.
Yeah?
Can't wait to see it again.
Honestly. Awesome. I really love that, man. It makes it a lot easier to chat with people, and I think the movie is something people respond to. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for getting the word out.
So, in my mind, Jeremy didn't actually say no.
I didn't hear him say no. I didn't hear him say no either.
So, I guess you need to keep an eye out for Dungeons and Dragons 2 starring Roll Britannia.
Roll Britannia. That'll be no honour amongst Thieves then if we're getting involved.
Yeah, I mean, the casting is going to be the cast of Roll Britannia, then Chris Pine, then we're going to be top billed, obviously.
Have a little, like a couple of lines, I guess.
I mean, I'll take the also starring at the end.
And then
I'll take that.
I won't, James.
And then our names again afterwards.
As long as our names are bigger than the actual movie title on the poster,
absolutely.
I'm happy with that. Roll Britannia.
No, but I mean, I thought it was really great to talk to Jeremy.
He was lovely, really nice man.
He had some really interesting insights, and his view on the old sequel. I really respect that. It's a really nice little tidbit. I think it's it'll be. I'd love to see one personally because I really enjoyed the movie, but obviously we got to let the world decide. So if you want to see us in a movie, because he hasn't said we can't be in it, the important thing is to tell everyone you know to go and see the movie several times.
And then also write reviews that say, I saw this movie, really enjoyed it. Please put Roll Britannia in the next one.
It was just missing Roll Britannia.
Yeah, just one note. But no, Jeremy was really, really lovely. He had a really nice chat. He's got a very, like you say, he's got a very good perspective on filmmaking, and he's obviously got loads and loads of experience under his belt. It really does show, actually, in the way that this film has been constructed. that it's because obviously he mentioned in the interview that he wasn't necessarily a huge fan of D&D before they made the film.
Well, I think he said he'd never played it before.
Yeah.
Process had started, really.
Good lad.
And that's the spirit
know
that
how
we
that
like. And he clearly kind of identified in the directors that they love D&D, and he wanted to give the fans more of what they want from D&D. And it definitely shows. I think it's really good. I really liked his thing, like you said, about his kind of perspective on the sequel. And he mentioned to us, obviously, the Kevin Feige thing, which I think is a really nice piece of advice.
Yeah.
And it does feel like all of the good bits that they had thought of, they put in the film.
So you met the directors?
I do. It was nice to be able to see, because actually we all came out of that movie and thought, actually this really has a vibe of a sort of Guardians of the Galaxy kind of energy, like timing, comedy, like action sequences, feels like very Guardians of the Galaxy. And we kind of thought that before we actually knew that the producer that was involved in it was from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, very much so. And
so,
I loved how they all played before.
Yeah, I mean, that little story was great.
Was great. Yeah,
that was a great little tidbit.
If there was a way to get your cast into the mindset of D&D, there probably is no better way than playing D&D.
100%.
So you that's got to be
imagine
a
imagine
first,
being
surely.
around that table. Imagine being a DM and trying to keep like Chris Pine on track.
Over video call as well.
Oh god. Well, if they need any advice from us, they need any advice from us.
Yeah, they should go to an Airbnb instead.
Yeah, great. I think.
I don't think they'll be packed. They'll be as sweaty as we are.
That's just because we're so.
We weren't sweaty in the last one.
You were.
It was fine.
So you spoke to the directors as well, then?
So, yes, we did. But
how can I? You going to tell us all about that?
Don't do it to trap.
It's an absolute trap, which is why you'll have to join me next time, where James and I will be chatting to the two directors, Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly, and they are really into Dungeons and Dragons. So,
can't wait.
You'll really enjoy that one. In the meantime, if you cannot wait until that and you want to hear more from the crew at Roll Britannia, then go and listen to all of the episodes. They're all there on wherever you catch your podcast.
Probably where you listen to this one, to be fair.
And
just scroll up or down.
So
either way,
the thing works.
They're everywhere.
Just hit play. Just hit.
So thank you very much for listening.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Social Podcast Network.
Tired of ads crashing your comedy podcast party? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free comedy to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.